Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days. Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days. Waiver gems and trade block plays. Win today and plan for days.
Win your league, stack that bread, or start a boom and lose instead. Sunday Surefire, let's go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sunday Surefire podcast. I'm your host, the Commish. Joining me tonight is the co-host, Aaron Downtown Brown.
Hey.
And I got my other favorite co-host alongside as well. My man Ethan Weaver is here.
Commish, how we doing?
Doing good, boys. Doing pretty good. It was a fun conference championship game weekend. For the first time in what feels like forever, Aaron's Kansas City Chiefs are not returning to the Super Bowl.
Thank God.
Ethan,
thank God.
Do you know who is going to the Super Bowl, Ethan? Out of the AFC?
I think it's my cue.
I believe it's New England Patriots, baby. It's the New England Patriots. We're back. We're back,
baby. We're back. We had two really bad years. So the rest of the world should feel really bad for us.
We deserve this. We deserve this.
This is our birthright. We had AFC Championship game weekend used to be week 1 in New England, so it was nice to get back to that. We had week 1 out in Denver last week. You could say what you will about the schedule and all this. That's fine. Our schedule was easy. I'm not going to fight you on that. But you know what? America's favorite team is back in the Super Bowl, so we're happy to have our Patriots back where they belong in the big game. So,
amen. Amen.
Good stuff. But we won't go over that much further here today, as much as we would love to do that. Ethan and I, at Aaron's expense, would love to talk about the Patriots' resurgence and the Chiefs being out of it. We're not going to do that. We are, though, going to talk about the 2025 rookie class for the final time. It's always really fun to dive into all these rookie classes every single year and kind of make your preseason rankings, and you figure out where consensus is, and you kind of have guys that you kind of place your bets on. You say, I really like this guy, more the consensus, less consensus, whatever the case may be. So we thought we might as well just continue that one more time with the 2025 class, but now do it now that we have a full season of data to go with on this. So we saw what the rookie years looked like. We're going to be doing this exercise based on both what their inaugural season looked like in the NFL and just kind of projecting forward as well. So taking a little bit of both of what we've seen and what we think we will see going forward. This draft's going to be a super flex tight end premium format. We decided on 6 points for passing touchdown. We're going to do full PPR for the non-tight ends, and the tight ends will be 1.75. So a relatively high premium for the tight end position. That's our format here. And with this one, we're going to let Aaron go first to make the first pick in the draft. I'll take the number 2 slot. Ethan will go number 3, and then we'll just kind of keep rolling with the same order that we had from there. So Aaron will pick at 4, I'll pick at 5, then Ethan will go again at 6, and we'll continue that for a full 2-round mock here. So we got a lot to fire away on here. 24 players we're talking, Aaron. So without any further ado, please tell us who the 101 is in this exercise.
All right. It's funny. I was kind of hoping to be 2 or 3, so it wouldn't be so anticlimactic here. But I'm gonna kick it old school. I'm gonna stick with Ashton Genty. I think he's still a bell cow running back. He was all the pre-mocks last year, but I think he didn't lose his job right after the 2025 season. He's still going to be a bell cow back, and those are hard to find. Even though he's a Raider, I'm going to stick with Genty here as my 1-1.
All right, Ashton Genty retains his top position in the draft from the preseason. He wasn't quite my 101, but I did have him going early as well. Tough spot for him out there with the Raiders, but hopefully better days are ahead. He did still finish as a top 12 running back despite being in the worst situation in the league. So better days ahead for Genty for sure. With this being a super flex draft, I ended up going with Jackson Dart as my 101, as my 102 here off the board. So I'll go ahead and take him. Guy I was a big fan of in the preseason. He finished as a top 10 quarterback in 7 of the 12 games that he started last season, despite leaving a couple of those games for stretches with an injury. So Superflex format, we're doing this exercise in a vacuum more or less, so it's not like you're worried about team needs or anything. So we're going to be taking essentially best player available throughout the process. So went ahead and grabbed Dart at the 102.
I think that's That's a smart pick. Super flex draft. Jackson Dart showed a lot in his rookie season, passing and rushing. Now he has a good head coach in Harbaugh. So I think his future is bright if he can stay on the field and add a concussion protocol. I think I like the first two picks. Genty, we may get a lot of backlash with him at the 101, but when I see him play, when I saw him play this year, I saw the juice that he had at Boise State. He was just, as the commission said, in a very, very poor situation. So at the 103, I'm going to lean into the format a little bit. I'm going to go Colston Loveland, who's my tight end 3 in Dynasty at the moment. He surpassed Tyler Warren down the stretch for me. I think we saw Loveland. I think we saw what the Bears and Ben Johnson envisioned in Loveland down the stretch. I mean, he crushed in weeks 17, 18, scoring over 25 points in both those. And he had 10 and 15 targets in both playoff games going off in the divisional round. So I think the future is very, very bright for Colston Loveland. He's that kind of Kelsey mold where he's essentially a receiver at the tight end position. So I think he's going to pay dividends in your tight end spot for years to come.
Yeah, that's a good pick there. I think Loveland, he was letting a lot of managers down early in the season, but he definitely came to become a stud. I know, he became one of the top options here for Caleb in this offense. So good pick, especially with the tight end premium. Man, I feel like I'm being taking the boring picks today, but I'm going back to the well, I guess. I'm gonna go with the top 2 running backs in the draft. I still got love for Marion Hampton with the Chargers. Yes, they have a lot of offensive line issues, but a lot of those issues were just injuries, right? So they're gonna have those guys back next year. Harbaugh and McDaniel offense now over with the Chargers too. So I like the upside with Amari and Hampton still.
Yeah, I'm still pretty high on Hampton too. He started to show as he got more run after the first week of the year. He was a top 7 running back in the 2 weeks prior to him getting injured, and then he missed a big stretch of time. Came back and he looked pretty decent, and then he was banged up again for their playoff game. So hopefully better days are on the horizon for him. They drafted him in the first round. Harbaugh's still there, so he's gonna get plenty of work going forward. I'm not overly worried about his future outlook. And then the Loveland pick I liked a lot, just going back one spot. I mean, he was my 3rd guy off the board in this exercise too. Looked great down the stretch too. So you always like to see rookies finish out their rookie campaign on a high note. He definitely did that. So Ethan leaned into the format there with going Loveland the 103, which I love because I was a Loveland over Tyler Warren guy throughout the offseason process. So I was glad to see him come around on that and agree with me. But I'm actually going to go the other way with this one now that I'm on the clock again at the 105. I'm going to go Tyler Warren. Just for the same reason, leaning into the format. Warren looked really good early in the early going with Daniel Jones under center. We'll see what the future looks like at the quarterback position for the Indianapolis Colts, but with this being a dynasty heavy tight end premium format, I just felt comfortable rounding up the top 5, grabbing Warren, just kind of a set it and forget it starter at tight end, and I'll hope that the Colts can do a little bit better than Anthony Richardson going forward. So we'll see how it pans out, but I'm happy to grab the tight end here.
Yeah, in this format, it's hard not to draft Tyler Warren. He showed so much as a rookie with a healthy Daniel Jones. Obviously, the situation went south, as you said, when Jones got hurt. But Tyler Warren has so much talent, and he's a difference-making tight end in your lineup. So really like that pick. I think this makes a pretty easy pick for me at the 106, and that is Ted McMillan. I think Ted McMillan was head and shoulders the best receiver this year from start to finish. He's the clear alpha in Carolina. He's going to continue that role into next year. He had 122 targets this year, turned those into a little over 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. Bryce Young, he's showed a little bit of improvement. If he can take another step with Ted McMillan next year, I think the ceiling is very high for McMillan. I think he has a chance to be a perennial wide receiver 1 in fantasy. So I think it was a pretty easy selection here at the 106.
Yeah, I like Tet. He was who I was gonna go with if you didn't there. So great pick. I mean, I can even say, maybe getting him a little bit higher, but I like the Warren pick as well. He's kind of your comfortable tight end in the class that's gonna get his targets. I guess I'm probably gonna get a little bit of backlash with this one. I'm gonna go three straight running backs, and I'm gonna stick to my guns with one league. I actually drafted this guy over one of your beloved Patriots, but I'm going to RJ Harvey here. Um, RJ Harvey kind of carved out a role. I love his, I could definitely see Kamara piece in that Sean Payton offense there. So I think he's just going to take it and run with it into 2026. But yeah, he's all part of their game. He completely fits into the Broncos offense of the dink and dunks as well. So he's going to keep getting those sneaky points.
Is it a few picks too early for RJ Harvey, Ethan?
I think so. I would have went in. I probably would have drafted a couple players over RJ Harvey, but I don't absolutely hate it. I think he does have a pretty sizable role next year. I'm just curious if they're going to bring somebody in. Is Dobbins going to be back and be a thorn in the side? RJ Harvey obviously showed flashes, but are they going to give him the full workload next year? I know that's a pretty good offense, obviously, over there. So, but I probably would have slid him down the board a couple spots.
Same here. I had him in the first round, but towards the back end of the round for the reason you mentioned. I foresee him being part of a committee, which is okay. It's a committee league, as we know, so
Yep.
It's not the end of the world. But a lot of his ascension took place after Dobbins went out, and I think the league, the Broncos, in the current state of the league, can do better than Dobbins going forward as a running mate with Harvey. So I am a little. I'll use the word worried about that, but I do think Harvey's going to maintain fantasy value going forward. He's a guy that if you drafted him, you're happy with what he showed you down the stretch, and he's going to continue to be a useful player for you. But I just think the 107 was a little bit early, but that's okay. All good, Aaron, no problem. This one was tough because this area of the draft, you can kind of go in a different direction. Like team need plays a role here. Obviously, that's not relevant where we're doing this exercise in a vacuum. But I passed on the running backs that were here and the kind of obvious receiver that was left. And I'm just going back to tight end. I'm going to go over to Harold Fannin Jr. Just showed out a lot to me in a horrendous quarterback situation out there in Cleveland. He had 7 tight end 1 finishes in 16 games played. Took over a larger role as the season progressed. And with David Njoku entering free agency this offseason, being an older player, he's someone who doesn't really exactly fit the Browns window. So I think he's a weapon that the new coach, Todd Monken, can hopefully get the best out of. We saw Andrews and likely have some success in previous seasons in this offense under Monken. So I'm hopeful that Fannin can just only continue to ascend. And who knows, maybe Sanders is the guy and takes that next step, or maybe they find another quarterback to take his place down the line. And it's just more upside for Fannin in that Browns passing attack. So taking him, leaning into that premium format here at the 108.
I really like that pick. Fannin was an absolute steal in drafts this year for everybody who drafted Harold Fannin. He was just a blessing on your fantasy football team. Even redraft, Dynasty, doesn't matter. Fannin was awesome. And yeah, he helped fantasy managers win a lot of games. Fannin, I think, is going to be obviously a very prominent role next year. We'll see what happens with David Njoku, but even if Njoku is still hanging around, Fannin proved that he's going to be the tight end 1 of that team. As you said, Todd Monken in town. So I think that's good news for Harold Fannin. So I'd like to pick there. It makes, again, my selection at the 109, I think, rather easy. I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka, receiver, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You take his first, half of the season, he was the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. And that people were just going ballistic over Emeka Egbuka, and obviously he fell off. But he fell off, but the whole team kind of fell off. I mean, the Buccaneers lost, they won 1 or 2 games down in their last 8 or 9 or whatever it was. It was pretty bad. So obviously the Buccaneers missed the playoffs. Emeka Egbuka fell off the face of the earth, but we saw that flash. We saw what his upside in that offense is. Evans and Godwin are another year older. I think Egbuka going into his sophomore year can really explode again and kind of get back in the good graces of fantasy managers. So I like Egbuka what he showed, and I think he's going to have a very promising future. So I like him at the 109 here.
Yeah, I like those picks. It's funny. I had Fannin at my ninth pick. So if he dropped, I had him on there. And then a book was interesting. I think sometimes those rookies, they can blow up early in the season. It's just interesting to see, when he totally becomes the guy, can he keep that workload on? So I like the pick. He's who I would have picked after Fannin as well. But it's funny. I'm turning into the running back guy tonight just based on my rankings, I guess. Gonna have to be, but I'll go with the Patriot here. I'll go with Travion Henderson here. I still I know Ramondre's still a thorn in his side, but I think just the Patriots offense has upside years to come. Henderson's job is not going anywhere, so I think in a PPR league, I would still like Henderson here.
Good picks back to back. I like them both. Like Buka for the reasons Ethan mentioned. Mike Evans being a free agent, likely, maybe not likely, but there's a chance he lands elsewhere, so it becomes Godwin and Egbuka side by side with Jalen in the middle and mixing in. Future's bright for him. Henderson had a really explosive stretch there in the middle of the season after not doing much the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season. Then he's been really quiet in the playoffs as well. There's a lot going on with New England, and Ramondre Stevenson's been the hot hand, and they've been riding him when the games matter. So I expect Henderson to look better at the start of next season. I'd be a little alarmed if he didn't look better at the start of next season, but I saw enough this season to warrant him being in my top 12 selection, so I have no problem with this pick here at the 110. It's going to be my turn here to go ahead and tap the running back position. I'm going to go ahead and draft Henderson's college teammate, Quinshawn Judkins. It was funny. These two were kind of back-to-back in rankings all throughout the season. Last year, even as the season progressed early in the year, they were back-to-back, and now they kind of find themselves here again in this exercise, which is funny. I guess they just can't get away from one another's. But he showed me a lot, too, before his injury in a really tough situation. Showed he can carry a big workload there. Another example of me being high on the Todd Monken offense in the future. We saw what the running backs did there with the crazy mobile quarterback in Lamar Jackson State taking away touches from the running game. Sanders is not that guy who's going to steal a bunch of rushing yards and touchdowns with his legs, as we know. So we'll see what they do at quarterback. Maybe they go ahead and sign Malik Willis, and the situation changes a little bit, but we'll see. But for now, I'm optimistic that Judkins is going to retain that role when he's back on the field. He had the tough late season injury, but at least in theory, he's on track to return for the start of next season. But anyway, with it being Dynasty and him being 22 years old next year, I just had no problem grabbing him here with a late first-round pick.
No, I like the last two picks a lot. Quinshawn Judkins would have been my pick there, Pat. I just, for all the reasons you just said, to get a workhorse back, obviously on his rookie contract, young, explosive. He showed enough. Obviously, that offense wasn't very good this year, but I love Judkins coming out of Ohio State, and I think the future is bright for him. And just to piggyback on Travion Henderson, if Henderson wasn't completely just stapled to the bench throughout these playoffs, and if he didn't have the quiet end of the season, I think Henderson would be a few spots higher. I mean, that middle of the year run that he had was great, which is one of the reasons why he's in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year for the upcoming NFL awards. But like those two picks, the 112, there's a couple guys I was kind of mulling over here, and I think if I'm just going into next year and picking a player that is going to have decent value and in a good offense, I think with a good direction, or I should say an improved offense, I think I'm going to go to the running back position and select Cam Skattebo. He might not have a very long NFL career, but I think he's going to be very productive with the new regime in town in New York. Jackson Dart, I think, can command a decent offense, and we saw what Skattebo can do on the field when he's healthy. I mean, he runs like a man possessed. He's going to be the workhorse there. So I leaned with Skattebo. I had a couple of tough decisions here, but ultimately I went with Scadaboo here.
I like it. He was my 2-1, and I could frankly see him. I was debating to see if you would grab this next player or not, and if I was gonna maybe go back and forth between my 112 and 2-1 here, but I'm gonna go strictly based on like ranking these guys. I don't have very many shares of them, but I know in Superflex you got to get starting quarterbacks, and second year can be a big leap. So I'm gonna go with Cam Ward at the 2-1 here. He didn't have a lot of promise in that offense, but he got new coaches, got year 2, new weapons to throw to. I went Cam Ward here.
Love the idea of getting the starting quarterback the early second round of a super flex draft, especially ones that we know are going to be starting games next season. So I'm going to go with a similar thought process. I'm going to take Tyler Shuck here at the 202. He ended up being, we talked about steals of the draft earlier with some of these other guys, but he was like the steal of super flex drafts last season, where he was, like, looking back on it, we're kind of like, well, he was a second round pick by the Saints, and they had Spencer Rattler as their starting quarterback penciled in. We knew he was going to get on the field at some point, in all likelihood, in 2025. And sure enough, he did, but he was still going in the third round of Superflex drafts last season. So there was a lot of great value in drafting him where people did last year. I think there's still some value in taking him here at the 202 in this kind of do-over exercise, if you will, because we know he's going to be the starting quarterback there. He was productive towards the end of the season. I think Kellen Moore is onto something down in New Orleans, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And he also gives you some rushing utility with his legs too. So he ran for a few touchdowns there down the stretch. So overall, like the player, was happy to get him here at a little bit of a discount here at the 202.
Yeah, I don't mind the last two picks. Obviously, super flex format, but those guys should be there. And that's why my Scadaboo pick was tough, because it is a vacuum, right? We're not drafting for team need. What worries me with Ward and Shuck is just value. I know in the leagues I play in, they have very, very little value. Shuck is obviously starting to rise a little bit. I think he's been steadily increasing, and I think people are starting to come around him. Cam Ward has been kind of a dead asset for a while. I guess dead is a little harsh, but I mean, you're not obviously getting what you paid for him last year. And I know he slipped to the 112 in the rookie draft to me in one of my Dynasty leagues, and I felt forced to take him, which I did. And I'm not getting a good ROI on that investment right now. But Cam Ward did obviously show some improvement down the stretch. Hopefully he can ascend. But these are guys that they need to come out and hit in 2026 right off the rip, or nobody's going to value them as a long-term solution at quarterback, and they're just going to kind of rot in your roster. So it's obviously that's the risk that you take with the quarterback position, but that's why I didn't pick either of them in the first round. I'm still not 100% sold on my 112 pick anyways, but
well, fair enough. Well, let me ask this: where you went Scadaboo at 112, so you didn't draft Ward or Shuck here. I guess if you had to choose, do you prefer one to the other?
I prefer what I saw at a Shuck and what he's done in New Orleans. I mean, it's not like the Saints, have a ton of pieces either. And what he did down the stretch was very good. He was a very, very serviceable quarterback. And in one of my redraft fantasy championships, I actually had to start Tyler Shuck because Lamar Jackson was hurt and there was nobody else available. And he put up over 20 points for me. And he was consistently putting up over 20 points down the stretch. So, this year, I would have much rather started Shuck towards the latter half of the season than Cam Ward. But obviously Cam Ward has the first overall pick capital. He's going to get every opportunity to be the starter of the Tennessee Titans. But I liked what I saw out of Shuck better than what I saw out of Cam Ward. But to give Cam Ward a little bit of grace, the situation he had in Tennessee was pretty terrible.
So give us an answer. Pick one, stick with it, and then move on to your next pick.
Okay. Right now, I'd probably go Tyler Shuck, just right now, just from what I've seen. But it's close. This leads me to the 2-3. Another difficult decision, and I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go Luther Burden. Luther Burden at 2-3 here. I like what I saw down the stretch. I feel like every time he was in the lineup with DJ Moore and he ended up being the go-to guy for Caleb Williams. I think that's going to be a very much an ascending offense. It was great. It was good this year. I think it's going to get even better with obviously Caleb Williams taking a step, Ben Johnson a second year with the Bears. I think Luther Burden is a pretty safe bet going into next year. I think he's going to be somebody that's going to be easily flex worthy, wide receiver 2/3 worthy, somebody that you can rely on. So I just like the situation he's in. I like how they used him down the stretch in Chicago. So Luther Burden 2-3.
Yeah, I like that call. That's exactly who I had at 2-3 on my rankings. So he was my 2-3 in preparation here. It's ironic. I actually had 2 back-to-back Bears at the 2-3 and 2-4. I moved up in the board with Kyle Monangai. I'm going to take Kyle Monangai here at 2-4. I think he showed a lot of promise this year. They had him in at all the tight situations in their playoff run too, so they got a lot of confidence in him. Definitely taking shares away from Swift. So I like Monangai's future with the Bears.
Yeah, a couple of the good picks there. I do like the Luther Burden pick. He was also on my 203 exactly, so we were kind of all in lockstep with that one. I think he's kind of in a lot of ways the end of a tier in this draft. Kind of just makes sense where we all had him there. We're kind of jumping off from I at least somewhat some type of certainty, some type of like guys that we saw really kind of carve out a role for themselves, kind of coming off the board there after the 203. From here, it's kind of like you kind of pick your flavor of the month at running back, or you go with one of these receivers that looks solid but hasn't overly popped yet. So I'm going to go to the wide receiver position. I'm going to go with Jaden Higgins, leading into the draft capital, leading into the fact that I think he's going to be their number 2 wide receiver there going forward behind Nico Collins. This team has a bunch of needs on offense, and none of them have to do with the skill position players. I mean, they need offensive line help badly. CJ Stroud was, for all intents and purposes, exposed up in New England a couple weeks ago. They got to get, and that's kind of just a limitation of his game, if we're being honest. Like, he's not a type of guy who can succeed without quality offensive line play, or it starts to look like it did in New England the other day. So I think they're going to go ahead and address that. They're going to give CJ Stroud a little bit more time back there to throw the ball. And I think we're going to see Higgins kind of being in there more so on a full-time basis. And some of those kind of flash plays that we saw will happen a little bit more regularly, even if he is going to play second fiddle to Nico Collins going forward.
I like that pick. I think Higgins is going to take a leap in year 2. I think he's one of these players that didn't have this absolute breakout as a rookie, but I think he's one of these players that are going to take some time. Someone almost like similar to his teammate Nico Collins takes maybe 2-3 years to break out. I mean, look at a guy like Alec Pierce. You take 3 years to break out. Sometimes these players come in the league, they don't have this massive rookie year, and the floor falls out from underneath them in terms of their value. I think Higgins is actually a pretty nice dynasty buy right now if you can get him a little cheaper based on his production as a rookie, because I do think the future is pretty bright for him. He has all the measurables. He's a big bodied receiver, and it's going to be him, Nico, Jalen Noel. I mean, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. So I do like that pick. That brings us to the 2-6. And I think I'm going to lean into the format right here, go with a slightly safer option here, somebody that you can, especially in this format, put in your lineup, and that's our Rondé Gadsden, the tight end for the Chargers. Obviously, he was absolutely great weeks, like basically 6 through 11. I mean, scoring 30, 20-plus points, and obviously showed a bunch of flashes as a rookie, a later draft pick too in the NFL draft. So I think he is only going to continue to get better. I know that there is a lot of lot of target competition in LA there, but I do think Gadsden showed a ton as a rookie at the tight end position, and I think his role is only going to ascend. So I think in the middle of the second round here, I'm going to take the Chargers starting tight end with the upside that he put on tape this year.
I love it. You came through and you sniped me again there, Ethan. I think it's fun because this is an exercise, but it's also a little reassuring because I had him at my 2-6. So I'm like, wow, it's cool. We're on the same page with some of these picks. So I guess I told myself if I wasn't going Gadsden, I'm gonna go Mason Taylor. So I'm gonna stick with the format as well. Taylor commanded a lot of targets in the offense. I know. They had a lot of injuries and quarterback concerns, but I did like what I saw out of Mason Taylor with the Jets. The Jets need a lot of work, but if they can find some quarterback over there to get some guys at least some volume, I do like Mason Taylor. So I'll stick with the tight end here.
The Jets are working on a decade and a half without making the playoffs. So to say they need some work is putting it kindly, Aaron. So that's
very nicely. That was very nice of you, Aaron.
Yeah, I think they're just 22 new starters away from being right there. I think, or maybe 21. We'll give you Mason Taylor. We'll say he's a fine, serviceable tight end there. I get it. Based on the format, I like Taylor. I liked him more and more as the process went on last offseason. I think it's a few picks too early for my liking, but I wasn't going to let him get get out of the second round. Like he was on my board to draft before the exercise ended. So yeah, I do like it. And I like the Gadsden pick as well for all the reasons that Ethan mentioned. He's just another guy who's kind of suited to be kind of a light version of Colston and Loveland, where he's better suited to play tight end and catch passes than he is to be a traditional blocking tight end, which bodes well for fantasy and bodes well for when attached to someone like Justin Herbert. So like those picks, double tap and tight end. I'm going to go running back here. I'm going to pick my flavor of the month here out of this group here. I was debating between Woody Marks and Bayshell Tootin. I'm going to go with Tootin, not quite so much for what we saw this season, but I think for what could be going forward. I just examine the situations. I think the most likely outcome in Houston is that the long-term RB1 isn't on the roster yet. The plan coming into the season was Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb, and then Woody Marks mixing in on passing downs. Due to Chubb just kind of falling off, just being a shell of what he used to be, and Mixon not being ready to go at any point to play this season, it ended up being Woody Marks out of necessity. I think they're going to address the running back room this offseason in Houston, whereas someone like Tootin, we have Travis Etienne walking out the door. He was the first running back that this regime selected. So he's kind of like pegged to be the guy going forward. And we saw him in very small increments get the opportunity to lead this backfield, or maybe not lead the backfield, but get his opportunity to get some run in the backfield. And it looked pretty good in stretches. So I do think he's a player that is going to have an opportunity to increase his value going forward into 2026. And I was happy to grab him here at the 208.
Yeah, too, and if he can be the guy in that offense, it's wheels up. His stock is going to go through the roof. Too, and very, very, very athletic running back. We all fell in love with those combine numbers, and he is in an awesome situation in Jacksonville. So I like the upside pick there, and I'm going to stay in Jacksonville. Right, I don't want to let this guy keep I guess in air quotes sliding, because I could easily see him sliding out of the second round based on the fact that he's now a cornerback. But I'm just going to select Travis Hunter just for the upside in the fact that, hey, he may be playing receiver. I know there's a lot of conversation. He's a very polarizing player. What makes me nervous about Travis Hunter is obviously Jacoby Myers. They brought him in there. Parker Washington became a player. You have BTJ. You have Brett Strange. So by the looks of it, you don't really need him at wide receiver. You could probably just use him at corner, which they already came out and said they're projecting to play more defense next year. At back end of the second round, I'll take Travis Hunter. I'll see if that actually comes to light. I'll see if he's actually more of a corner than a receiver next year. I did like what I saw towards the end of the seaon before he got hurt. He was starting to come around, and obviously he had that knee injury in practice. But a guy that was drafted at the 102 by Jacksonville, they have a lot of plans for him. Hopefully those plans lean more towards the offensive side of the ball. But I felt like the upside in Travis Hunter, I feel like I just didn't want to pass him up here for running backs that may never be the guy. Like, I'm glad the commission didn't go Woody Marks, because I 100% think the Texans star running back isn't on the team yet. So I'm just going to go with the upside in Travis Hunter.
I hear you. I think obviously it was all on our list where it's like there's some guys here you just in this exercise you don't want to let them slip too far. I mean, I'm on our last episode I said I'm a little down on Hunter just because of how much I like Parker Washington now, but no, I definitely get it. I almost say like he's probably might be a nice best ball guy to have if you play best ball with some Travis Hunter weeks, right? He might just have some crazy weeks, but tough to see his future ahead. But I'll stick on the wide receiver train here. I'm gonna go Trey Harris. He is a guy that he was kind of their fourth, wide receiver 4 for him on the depth chart early in the season. You kind of saw, it was like, oh man, the first quarter of the season, it was QJ and Keenan Allen were both wide receiver 1s. Who would have guessed that? But I'm kind of just looking at it where Keenan Allen was kind of that buffer player, for players like Gadsden, for Herbert to get familiar with. Trey Harris kind of came along, if you paid attention to him later in the season. He got more involved and had increased snaps. So I think when Keenan Allen is out of the picture, I think Harris can step up in the offense with Herbert, especially when they're going to get more healthy on the offensive line. Herbert's going to have more time to throw next year too. So I think a lot of upside with the Chargers next year in the passing game.
Yeah, you're keeping the faith on Trey Harris, which is great. I really like Trey Harris coming out a season ago, and it was not the rookie year I wanted. I should say I'm not out on Trey Harris either. I didn't have him in my top 24 though, so I'll say that. I had him kind of just in the early part of the third round. So if we did go to the third round, I would have definitely drafted him. So I think that there's hope for him. I'm not going to throw him out with the bathwater quite yet. Let me know what they do with QJ this offseason, because I think they drafted him to be an X wide receiver, and I think he can still be that at the NFL level. But like we've talked about a couple of times already with the Chargers offense, it is a crowded situation between Gadsden's emergence. Lad McConkey's going to be the guy there. And then it's kind of the X wide receivers are kind of fighting for the scraps. So I guess good on you for keeping the faith. You have a little more faith in him going forward than I do. But I do think there are better days ahead than what we saw in 2025. This last pick here that I'm going to make the 211 is a little bit tricky, because I do think Woody Marks deserves a call out here, but I also could go Shedeur Sanders with it being a Superflex league and him probably being a starting quarterback. It's probably what I should do, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go with Matthew Golden, the 211, going with the first round pick.
You sniped me, dude.
You're welcome, dude. You knew it was coming. Come on.
Yeah, I did.
Just kind of, we didn't see very much from Matthew Golden during the regular season. He did kind of open some eyes in that playoff game. He had that nice catch in space and then made a couple guys miss on the way to the end zone. You guys said, okay, where has this been all year, Matthew Golden? Right. But so he showed up when it mattered, for what it's worth, and kind of projecting out a year. Kind of look at the Green Bay depth chart at wide receiver. They're likely gonna lose Romeo Dobbs in free agency, as well as Dontavian Wicks. So it kind of clears the decks of the wide receiver room. Jaden Reed's going to be there, and Christian Watson is under contract. Of course, with Watson, he had a really strong bounce back towards the second half of last season. But you never know with him. The guy's one snap away at all times from being out for the year. So with him being a little bit inconsistent in terms of staying on the field, I kind of want to bet on Golden having a better sophomore season than he did in his rookie year. So I went with him here at the 211. Happy to grab him there.
Yeah, that's who I was hoping would fall to the 212. And you mentioned Woody Marks, you mentioned Shedeur Sanders. I already said Woody Marks. I don't think he's a long-term answer, which is why I wouldn't want to put much stock into him. And I kind of feel the same way about Shedeur Sanders. Well, I mean, I know he's a Pro Bowler, but I'm not. You know, it's just, I mean, kind of making a mockery of the Pro Bowl situation. I'm not sure what happened there. I'm not sure if a bunch of other quarterbacks just declined and then he was the next guy on the list. But Shedeur Sanders obviously showed flashes, but he's a guy that I don't think he is going to be the Cleveland Browns starting quarterback of the future, which is why I don't want to use a pick on that, because those quarterbacks that come in, they flame out, and then they're just dead weight in your roster. They're backups, and they don't create much value. I think I'm just going to piss everybody off, and I'm going to go 212 Caleb Johnson, a guy that needs to come around for my sake here. Right? No, but
Yes.
I mean, if you just look at the players on the board, right? Caleb Johnson was a third-round pick by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just looking at the board, I think he has the most upside, the biggest, I guess, shot to turn it around. And I'm just willing to take the dart at the 212 for a guy with good capital, good collegiate profile, a guy that everybody was high on. He was going in the sixth round in redraft leagues this year. So I know he's fallen like crazy in value, but I'm willing to take a shot on Caleb Johnson here at the 212.
Ethan's in the mood for a fixer-upper tonight.
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
I hope you're right there. I got too many shares of Caleb. So being
did this for you,
Iowa
man.
boy, man. He's an Iowa boy. I got faith.
Faith is what you need to have if you're holding on to shares of Caleb Johnson. That's for damn sure. And I got one share of him in Dynasty as well, and I'm hanging on to him and hoping. You know, you're probably not going to get offered more than like a third-round pick for him. And at that point, you might as well hang on. We'll see what Mike McCarthy and the new coaching staff thinks of him, but hopefully he can carve out any type of role for him. Would be a jump. So maybe it's a slow build for Johnson.
I mean, looking at the players, like obviously we're not going to the third round, but is there any player on the board that just screams, I'd rather have this player over Caleb Johnson?
So I was going to do that. I have a kind of a list of honorable mentions here. I forget one. Toss it out there by all means. A quarterback, I had Shedeur Sanders, who we didn't mention. Running back, Woody Marks, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Dylan Sampson, Jaden Blue. Receivers, Torrey Horton, Isaac Tesla, Kyle Williams, Pat Bryant, Chimere Dike, and then Terrence Ferguson at tight end. They're kind of the guys that we didn't draft here. So, Aaron, does anyone in that kind of pool stand out?
I have one more to throw in too. Another oddball name that. He didn't get a shot, and I wasn't going to draft him in the. Maybe he might be more of a third round guy, but Quinn Ewers, he got a shot. He took to his job at the end of the year. I mean, yes, will they look to at a different quarterback next year? But they got to figure some things out. I mean, Tua's still under contract, but they went with Ewers. But it is a new coaching staff in Miami next year. But he's an interesting guy to kind of keep an eye on. I wouldn't necessarily say let's draft him over any of these guys that we said, but it's more just like, hey, maybe keep track what happens in this offseason in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the players that you guys just discussed, like I said, don't, in my opinion, hold too much more weight over Caleb Johnson, which is why I just went with a guy that I really liked in the pre-draft process. And like I said, I mean, in this format, maybe Shedeur Sanders could have been the pick, but there's just so much turmoil in that organization. Who knows what he's gonna end up being there. And but yeah, so it's always fun looking back at the previous class and seeing how these players how everything shook out over the year, because obviously, I mean, we think we have all the answers come rookie season, and we obviously don't. You muted, Pat. Commish.
I mean, listen. Like pick your favorite analyst in the industry. No one has it all figured out. We're not going to have it all figured out. We joke about it sometimes. Like every time we turn the mics on, I'm like, there's going to be stuff I say tonight that's not going to age well. Like,
Oh God, yeah.
it's all good. It'd be nice if we had this exercise available to us during the rookie draft season, but unfortunately, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
So this was good though. It was fun. It was fun to put the cherry on top of the 2025 class, and it was overall. We were talking before we came on here. It was a solid class. There were some contributors in year one, which was great, and I think there's guys that we expect to take a leap going forward. I think everyone that went in the first round in this exercise firmly falls into that category where you feel if you have this guy on your team, you feel pretty good about them going into 2026 and beyond. You can even rub some of those quarterbacks and Luther Burton into that mix too. And so overall, it was a good class. I think it lived up to it, but I think there is also more ceiling going forward for these guys as well.
Oh, definitely. I think, like you said, overall, a pretty solid class. No, not too many absolute league winners coming out of the gates, but a lot of solid production.
Yeah, I think as we mentioned, it's just interesting to see who takes year 2 leaps, who takes year 3 leaps, right? So I think we said it last week too. It's all about being patient, making the right moves, not over investing, just making the right trades to position your teams. Obviously we can't, do these rookie drafts after the season, but I think there's a lot of merit to looking at them and how they're positioned going forward for sure.
All right, folks. Well, that's all they wrote on the 2025 rookie class. All these players are now officially NFL veterans. They've got their first campaign in the book, so we'll see how they stack up going forward into future years. We're going to start on the 2026 rookie class as early as next week. So we're going to start with wide receivers next week. So a lot to cover there. We have a lot of rookie content coming up here going forward. So going to be really fun to parse through all that. We'll do one position group at a time, and then before we know it, we'll be doing mock drafts on the 2026 class. So it'll be a good time, folks. But until next time, peace.